It's easy to look into the outlaws and gunfights of the Wild West. They capture our imaginations and have led to some of the most incredible stories in American culture. But what about the people who spent their lives bringing order to the lawless areas of the new formed country? These lawmen were just as important to American lore as the outlaws they chased. On this episode, we will be looking into the lives and legends of the Wild West's most influential lawmen. Welcome to Chronicles of Time, a channel that covers both well-known and obscure historical events. If you like what we're doing here, leave us a like, a comment, and please subscribe. It really does help the channel. The Three Guardsmen. This group of incredibly important lawmen was made up of Christian Madsen, William Pete Tilghman Jr., and the leader with arguably the coolest nickname I've ever heard, Henry Heck Thomas. These three men were U.S. Marshals who had been given the task of taming the wild lands of Oklahoma in the early 1890s. Not only did this trio of lawmen tame the Oklahoma plains, they were responsible for ending one of the most famous outlaw games of the Old West, the Doolin Dalton Gang. The three men were also known as being unfazed in their pursuit of outlaws. Ignoring bad weather and known for their tracking abilities, the three lawmen were given the name Three Guardsmen by the outlaws they were after. We discussed this shootout in another video, but Heck Thomas was the reason that the Dalton gang attempted to rob two banks at the same time during their demise in Coffeyville, Kansas. Emmett Dalton, the only member of the Dalton gang who survived the massacre at Coffeyville, specifically said that Heck Thomas was the reason for the decision. The Three Guardsmen were really made famous for their methodical and relentless pursuit of the Doolin Gang. The Three Guardsmen found the Doolin Gang hiding out in Ingalls, Oklahoma, and a shootout broke loose. 3 deputies and 2 civilians were killed while only 1 outlaw was captured. Because of this failure, the Three Guardsmen were tasked to abandon all other responsibilities to pursue the Doolin Gang full-time. The trio tracked down Bill Doolin in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, when Tilghman dressed as a preacher with a gun under his jacket. He surprised Doolin at a spa while he was there for a foot injury. After 6 months in prison, Bill Doolin escaped prison and made his way back to his wife's father's house in Lawson, Oklahoma. But Heck Thomas was there waiting with his fellow marshals and ordered for Bill Doolin to surrender. Doolin answered with gunfire and was shot dead by Heck Thomas. Chris Madsen led a posse that killed Doolin gang members Dynamite Dick Clifton and Richard Little Dick West. Tilghman was responsible for the death of Little Bill Radler. The rest of the gang was slowly captured or killed by the Three Guardsmen. Heck Thomas went on to become chief of police in Lawton, Oklahoma, and died in 1912. Bill Tilghman was elected to the Oklahoma State Senate. In 1924, Tilghman was murdered by a man named Wiley Lynn while he was serving as town marshal for Cromwell, Oklahoma. 1 month after Tilghman's death, the town of Cromwell was entirely burned to the ground. No building was left standing. Chris Madsen, the now last surviving member of the Three Guardsmen, is thought to be the one responsible for the arson. There was never an investigation conducted and the town of Cromwell never recovered. Chris Madsen himself died in 1944 at the ripe age of 93. The Three Guardsmen were said to have killed or captured over 300 outlaws during their time in Oklahoma. Dave Allison. William Davis Allison, also known as Dave Allison, was born in Ohio in 1861. He began his lifetime career as a lawman at the young age of 27. He moved to Texas and was elected the sheriff of Midland. With this appointment, he became the youngest sheriff of the Lone Star State. During his time there, he was coined as being the most efficient lawman in all of Texas. After serving 6 terms as sheriff in Midland, he moved to Arizona to join the Arizona Rangers. He reportedly killed the famous outlaw Three-Finger Jack after a train robbery in Fairbank, Arizona. He also captured the outlaw Owen brothers and Tom Bravo Juan Bowes. Dave Allison went on to serve with the Texas Rangers, the Roswell, New Mexico chief of police, and a bodyguard for mining magnate Bill Green during mining strikes in Mexico. Allison also led the posse that killed Mexican revolutionary turned outlaw Pascual Orozco. The famous American general George S. Patton said that Dave Allison is, quote, the most noted gunman here in Texas. Dave Allison was killed in the line of duty in 1923 when he and another detective, Horace Robertson, were ambushed at the Gaines Hotel in Seminole, Texas by infamous cattle rustlers Hill Loftus and Milton Good. It is said that with the death of Dave Allison came the end of the Texas frontier era. Bat Masterson. William Barclay Masterson was born in 1853 in Quebec, Canada. His family moved him around New York, Illinois, and landed near Wichita, Kansas in 1871. During his childhood years, he became very efficient with a firearm during his time hunting buffalo. When Bat was 18, he went on a buffalo hunt with his older brother Ed. They camped along the Salt Fork River in Comanche and Barber counties in Kansas when they ran into some hunters that would become legends of the Wild West. They were famous buffalo hunters Billy Dixon, Tom Nixon, who shot 120 buffalo in 40 minutes and set a record for killing 3,200 buffalo in 35 days, and someone all of us Western fans should be very familiar with, a man named Wyatt Earp. The Masterson brothers kept pushing into Native American territory in pursuit of buffalo and ended up establishing a large complex in the panhandle of Texas called Adobe Walls. It became an outpost that supported the huge influx of buffalo hunters. As expected, the Native Americans took this as a threat to their existence and led an attack on the small outpost. A force of 700 Comanche, Cheyenne, Kiowa, and Arapaho warriors attacked the camp on June 27th of 1874. 28 men, including Bat Masterson and Billy Dixon, took refuge in 2 different stores and the saloon. Although severely outnumbered, the hunters had superior weaponry and held off the attack for 4 days straight. Word got out and 100 men came to reinforce the post, which forced the Native Americans to retreat. An estimated 70 Native Americans were killed, while 4 men defending the Adobe Walls were killed. Because of this, an expedition was started out to the Texas Panhandle, and the Red River War against the Native Americans there began. Bat Masterson helped as a scout, but he went back to buffalo hunting and became a faro dealer. During his time as a dealer, he got into an argument with a man named Sergeant Melvin King over a card game and a woman named Molly Brennan. Firearms were drawn and Masterson shot Sergeant King dead. King did manage to fire at Masterson, but the bullet went through Molly Brennan before hitting him. Molly Brennan died from this wound, and the injury to Masterson caused him to walk with a limp for the rest of his life. After Bat Masterson healed from his injuries, he headed to Dodge City, Kansas to become a lawman, and Bat saw great success in his time there. He was elected sheriff in 1877, and when he took office in 1878, he immediately went to work. He stopped a train robbery in Kinsley, Kansas in the same month he took office. By April of 1878, Bat's brother Ed had become city marshal and got into an altercation with a man named Jack Wagner. After an altercation of the ordinance about carrying a firearm, Jack Wagner shot Ed Masterson in the back, mortally wounding him. Ed Masterson lived long enough to shoot Jack Wagner back, which was also fatal. This event led to a man named Charlie Bassett to be appointed to city marshal, and his assistant marshal? None other than Bat's old hunting buddy and Wild West royalty, Wyatt Earp. Bat Masterson would also stop the assassination attempts on the Dodge City mayor by a man named Spike Kennedy. On the second attempt, Kennedy killed a woman in the mayor's room and ran from town. Bat Masterson organized a posse with Charles Bassett, Wyatt Earp, and our old friend from the Three Guardsmen, Bill Tilghman, along with William Duffy. They caught up to him the same day of the shooting and shot his horse from beneath him. Even though he was captured, Spike Kennedy was acquitted with a lack of evidence and released. Masterson was then appointed as Deputy U.S. Marshal and arrested a man named Dutch Henry Bourne, who was one of the biggest horse thieves in all of the American West at the time. The next month, Masterson was put in charge of bringing Cheyenne prisoners to stand trial after a fall raid. The state of Kansas charged them with 40 murders, and this would be identified later in history as the last Native American raid in Kansas. Masterson was then tasked with protecting the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad during a dispute with a rival company, the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad, over the rights through the Royal Gorge in Colorado. Bat enlisted Doc Holliday, Dirty Dave, Mysterious Dave Mather, Ben Thompson, and about 70 others to help with this new endeavor. This would go on to be known as the Royal Gorge War. Although they saw success, the courts ruled in favor of the Denver-Rio Grande Railroad, and Bat had to concede. Masterson would move on to become a professional gambler all over the Wild West. By 1893, he was requested to go to New York City to help a bodyguard for a prominent man named George Gould. He would actually go on to become a sports writer for the New York Morning Telegraph. In 1905, Bat was appointed as a U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of New York until 1909. Bat Masterson would continue to write until his death in 1921. He died of a heart attack while working at his newspaper desk at the age of 67. Thank you for watching Chronicles of Time. If you like what we're doing here, leave a like, a comment, and please subscribe. It really does help the channel. Thank you all again for the suggestions. Please keep them coming. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers, y'all.